Hello YouTubers. In this day and age, it is rather difficult for a Church of England vicar to be given the opportunity to approach the young. This of course has mainly been due to the unacceptability of many of the Catholic priests, for instance, and the rather bad reputation that has been spread. Now, here in the Church of England, we've decided our priests are going to stand out from the crowd of the Catholics. Of course, the two denominations do get on rather well nowadays, but all the same, we would like and have asked to be kept separate. In the past, approaching children was quite an easy affair, but nowadays, with so much concern, and rightfully so, we've decided to make ourselves more accessible, more with it, with the young. And as you see, they've made me hold this balloon, and approaching children with sweets in the past has become, well, a thing of the past. My old bishop, for instance, he decided to try and gather in the flock, the young flock, as it were, by going round the schools, or at least hanging around the schools, and handing out sweeties to the young children as they departed. Unfortunately, this did lead to rather a lot of problems. Mainly the sweets, in fact, which he picked were love hearts. Now, he did explain later that they were a job lot from the local shop. The date had gone a little past, and Mr. Khan, the kindly shopkeeper, let him have them to give to the children. But hanging around the school did cause concerns. These little sweeties, rather nice little sherbet type sweets. I don't know if you know them. I think they call them candy in America. They have little messages on them like "I love you" and "be mine," and other little messages of that sort. Rather inappropriate, in fact. Unfortunately, that bishop is no longer with us. He's not dead, he just got small missionary work in northern India, a rather wet and damp place. However, it is important that we get to the young. We need to get to them young before they learn to think for themselves. And for this reason, the Archbishop has once again asked me if I could explain to people how we can get to the children without being called perverts. That's better. Now, I'm not very good with children, never have been. At my particular little parish, we do get them screaming in the pews now and again, the slightly older children. One in particular I do remember. The mother, we were having one of our services, a Sunday service, and just as I was about to do my sermon, the young child seemed distressed in the pews. The mother stood up and said, "My child feels sick," and rather not wanting her to be sick in the church, I said, quickly, go out of the doors, round the back, and at the back of the church you'll find where the graveyard is. Quickly, go there, run. The young girl, she ran out, and I continued with my sermon. A few moments, not long gone by, I was barely into the first part. The young girl came back, and I paused, and I said, "Are you feeling better?" She said, "Thank you, I've been sick." I said, oh, good, you know, I hope you're feeling better. Did you go around the back of the church? Round? I thought she hadn't been gone long. And she said, no, and funnily enough, I was out in the front, and there's a box there. It said, "For the sick and needy." I went in that. Children, eh? Anyway, that brings me to the next part. Now, another interesting child story I heard was at an interfaith meeting. It was one of these interfaith holidays, no, conferences, that's it. And it was in the Bahamas, and I met up with a friendly sort of Catholic priest, and he was telling me this tale of when he did his first confessional. Young priests don't often do confessions, but the elderly father had been taken ill and left him in charge. Luckily, in the Church of England, we don't need confessionals because we're allowed to do most of the things that they actually confess. But anyway, that's beside the point. Now, this father that had gone sick had given him a little booklet to read that gave all the sort of punishments they give in the Catholic faith, the Hail Marys and the prayers and all that sort of thing. And it was in alphabetical order, and you could look up the various things that people confessed and say, well, that's 6 Hail Marys or 20 Hail Marys and so many other little things they had to do. Now, with his very first gentleman that came in and spoke to him in his little confessional box, said, "Father, I have something to obviously confess," and it was the fact that he was addicted to masturbation. Now, this was a bit of a surprise to the young priest. He didn't expect this. He looked in his little book and looked down under M, and there was nothing listed for masturbation. Turns out he should have looked under the W's, but beside the point of this story. And so at that moment, he opened his little curtain and the choir were going by, and he noticed the choir boys. One of the elder choir boys that he knew very well, he called over, "Psst, come here, come here." And he said to the choir boy, he said, "Do you know what the Father gives for masturbation?" And the choir boy looked at him and he said, "Well, it's usually just a chocolate bar and a packet of crisps." Oh dear. How he laughed back at the palace.